Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Varujan Akobian covering the Dortmund Super Tournament 2012, and game of the day is the Jan Gustafsson and Vladimir Kramnik game. Kramnik won with the black pieces, and it was incredible game, and Kramnik I think surprised his opponent by choosing the King's Indian defense as black, and he hasn't played this for many years, so it was definitely a surprise for Gustafsson. And in the opening, he managed to get a very good position. So typical lines here, e5, and of course white can castle here, and this is the main line. And there's lots of theory after 97, and white can choose between b4, the bayonet attack, or can also play the knight e1, knight d8, bishop e3, f5, f3, and all these sharp lines, which it's unclear, maybe white is a little bit better, but black usually has good counterplay. So Gustafsson decided to play bishop e3. It's more like a solid opening choice, but played c6, Kramnik, castles, and e takes d4. An idea behind this move is to put the rook on e8 and to put pressure on e4. So this is one idea. And sometimes in these positions, you can capture back with the bishop. And if they go rook e8, then you can go bishop d3. So this is another possibility. But usually in taking with the knight, it's considered better. But in this position, the problem is usually white already has the queen on d2 in this position. So when they go rook e8, f3, d5 move is not very strong. But here d5 is very strong because the bishop is on e3. So in my opinion, Gustafsson misplayed in the opening here because he started to spend a lot of time here. At this point, he was still moving pretty fast, but after this move, knight d5, and he started to think, and the next move was just absolutely surprising. Even for us commentator, it was very difficult to guess because Kramnik decided to play a5, and he did this by playing very quickly, which shows that definitely this is, I think, a preparation. It will be interesting to find out if they're in a press conference or maybe later on after the tournament from Kramnik whether or not this was all preparation, because to me it looks like it was a preparation, because a5 is not a move you can just play quickly here. There's so many other alternatives. We were looking at the moves like taking on e4, some other possibilities. Actually, queen b3 also might be a very interesting continuation here for Gustafsson here. But he decided to play the rook c1 line. And a5, yeah, it's a move that you have to analyze with the computer. And, computer probably points out a5, and then first you're kind of surprised and you don't really see what's the idea behind it. But the idea is to play a4 when the queen gets to b3, and then later on to use the a3 idea. And this is exactly what happened in this game. So Gustafsson played queen b3 after spending more than 40 minutes in this position. He played queen b3. He couldn't see anything better because it's really annoying. The bishop is always hanging on e3, and if you move the bishop back, then he takes, so you're losing a pawn here. So it's just a tough position. So he goes here. Now a4, attacking on the queen. Now he decided to go for queen b5. If you play queen b3, you have to go for this line already. That's why, in my opinion, it was interesting also to consider playing queen b3 here, because at least in this position, black doesn't have a4. You cannot really attack the queen. And the idea is to put the rook on d1 rather than to put the rook on c1, because in this position, I think there are some possibilities for white. Bishop goes to c4 and some pressure on f7, because black is still not very well developed. And if white can try to play aggressive and get some counterplay, that will be very good for him. But he definitely should play dynamic here. So queen b3 was probably a better try than remove rook c1 here. So, but in the game he played queen b3, and this is a pretty forced line. And we were considering the move knight c6, and it looks very strong. But Kramnik played even stronger here. He first inserted the move a3, b3, and then he played knight c6. The idea behind the move knight c6 here is because you can't really take on e3. Because if you take on a3, you lose the bishop on c8. And you don't have time for the slow moves like bishop d7, because black will be able to play king f2 and defend his position. So that's why you have to go for an energetic knight c6 move. We will continue with this line, but another idea here was to play b takes a, and I think this is probably a stronger continuation that would have offered better chances to Gustafsson, because inclusion of a3, b3 is better for black, and you will see in the game Kramnik demonstrated why is it better. So if he would have taken, I think this would have been better in the sense that if now rook takes a3, he can still go bishop f2, because again, if bishop d4, you cannot take on here because of rook c8. Bishop is saying it's actually going to be a mate for black. So that's why this was a better try. This is a better try. I'm sure there are other possibilities for Kramnik. Bishop f2, maybe rook takes a2. Black might still have some initiative, but this is a lot better than what happened in the game. So in the game, b3 was played. Knight c6, very strong move. If capturing the knight with the pawn, this is just losing because both pieces hanging. Bishop d4 is coming up next, so can't do much. And if you take with a knight, just rook takes, and again, this is hanging, and this is both pieces hanging again here. Can't do anything. So that's why he has to go. Knight c2 back, and now rook takes c3. Excellent tactic. Now bishop is hanging, so he's forced to capture knight b4. And if you look at the clock, Kramnik is playing very fast all these moves, so it's possible that it's a long line that you analyze and you just go for it. So it's possible that it's possible that the whole game was actually a preparation, because now he's down an exchange and a pawn, but he has two very strong threats: bishop d4 and knight a2. And dark squares are so weak for white that he can't really do much. It's possible that Gustafsson could have defended better here, but it's very difficult when you're surprised in opening like this and you're just under so much pressure here. So he goes rook c4. Now he took. It's very important to win this pawn, because then a3 pawn is going to be very strong. Knight c3 idea is possible here. So he played rook a4 actually, trying to exchange the rooks. But this is just losing by force. Kramnik took bishop d4, pinning the knight. King f2 is the only move to defend it, and now knight b4. Knight b4, when played, it's creating three different threats. 1, 2, 3. It's very difficult when you're creating three different threats to stop in one move. a2, a1 is a threat, knight c2, knight d5, increasing the pressure on e3. So Gustafsson played a few more moves. Rook c1 was played, stopping the knight c2, knight d1 ideas, but now simply a2. Now he has to take, no choice, and king g7. Now threatening the queen, so rook c1 is the only move, and now simply knight takes d5. Now the threat is to go bishop e3, bishop c1. It's very difficult to stop it, and now he played rook d1. And after knight takes e3, Gustafsson resigned in the view of the following variation. Takes, a1 queen, takes, queen g1 check, has to go to d3, and there are two possibilities. Taking on g2 is possible, also taking on h2. I think h2 maybe it's even stronger here. An idea that if he goes here, just h5 takes, creating a pass pawn and just pushing the pawn. So it's a very strong threats here with the h pawn. So basically that's why, and there's nothing else you can do after this position, after knight e3, because if he moves the rook, just a discovery check and then queen, so he has to take and he cannot do anything. So it was an incredible game and a very energetic play by Kramnik. Again, it's a good chance that this whole game was a preparation, because he didn't spend that much time on the entire game and played a very nice game. Gustafsson could have defended better, but again, it's psychologically very difficult when you're surprised in the opening and you have to find a lot of moves on your own and your opponent is playing fast. It clearly shows that he's been better prepared in this game. So it was a very nice game, and now Kramnik is on 1.5. and it's a good start. It's just still the beginning of the tournament. There are a lot of games to go, but it was a very impressive win with the block pieces.